We got into this discussion about sovereign wealth. What's your take on what you're seeing and how much kind of maybe more central sovereign wealth funds are going to be the future of media?
I think it's tricky because of the content, and hence the sovereign wealth fund actually own a brand like CNN. I don't see that ever happening. And the fact that some of the bidders may have significant antitrust challenges. Some of the potential bidders haven't actually bought a US asset in 15 years. So I don't think Paramount necessarily has that issue, but some of the legacy media companies I think will.
But candidly, when you think about just the value destruction that has happened and just the disparity in equity values of these businesses relative to the tech players that are now impinging on sports rights, on content IP, etc. It's just, without some level of government intervention, it's hard to see how, ultimately we don't get to a steady state where all of the players like Amazon and Apple that are in the trillions and growing of value don't ultimately end up owning the bulk of this IP.
It was interesting. I saw an item today, I think, and Nadella from Microsoft was asked, and he said that the real competition for Xbox is not the other gaming platforms, it's TikTok. And I just thought that was really interesting. And I'm curious as to how much of that in turn influences sort of the deal activity in the private markets. And is it all kind of the same basket? Are they on very different kinds of trajectories? How do you think the two of them are play together?
It's interesting because there's ebbs and flows here. I think if we had this conversation 6 months ago, you'd say public markets relatively shut. Yeah. It's certainly back open now, right? There's IPO every day at this stage. And yet, I think when you see just the pools of private capital that are waiting to go do deals relative to how the public markets are working, and what is really the value other than liquidity for the shareholders in being a public stock and what that means over the long term when the analyst community isn't what it used to be. I think there are a lot fewer, though there's some great businesses that are some really good, cool, new IPO stories. There are a bunch of public companies that have no business being public.
I think the area where there is connectivity, sometimes being false precise, if you're on the sell side, is looking to public market valuations to value, right? It's some of the things that we do when we're on the sell side, and Blackstone will try to do when they're on the buy side, is say, hey, but I'm comped to XYZ company. They have this growth metric. They're trading at X times revenue or Y times cash flow. Value me at that. And then we on the sell side are like, well, but you're not that. They have scale. You don't. They have this. But there's certainly a connectivity there, which I think sometimes creates more impetus to sell, sometimes creates a much harder deal to get done because there is we will put you're smaller and, don't have the market share that the big companies you're trying to comp to have, but it could still lead to a founder or entrepreneur saying, but Greg, Drakestar, I still want that multiple, then I won't sell. The offers I got were insulting. I will wait, grow my company for 2 years and come back. So it's a benchmark. It's one of many, and sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not in terms of getting M&A deals done, at least in my experience.
How much is it sort of following or linked to the broader macroeconomic trends? And whether that's tariffs, even if it isn't directly affecting the companies, kind of the broader marketplace, how much of it is keyed to what's going on in the macroeconomic environment versus the specifics of the change, churn, transformation going on in this business?
So 18 to 30-year-olds polled in China, do we know what the most popular desired profession is? Do we know? So it's not in China. It's to be an astronaut. In the US, it's to be an influencer.
Yeah.
And so when we think about that against the gig economy, against sort of how, I think this upcoming generation is thinking about going into college, out of college, and how they're going to make a living, it's not necessarily going to a desk job, a 9 to 5. The majority are thinking about, well, we can make a living as an influencer creating content And so when we think about what percentage of the GDP is going to actually be sort of, the creation of media, it's only going to grow. And, thinking about how that's going to work next to the impact of AI, I think is really exciting.
And by the way, that's very scary, to being an astronaut, an engineer versus someone who wants to be an influencer. And hence the reason that our biggest challenge is China.
So how is the process of deal making now changing? How is it changing both in not just the kind of regulatory and current environment, but technologically, AI, et cetera? How is that changing the way you go about looking for deals, sourcing deals, and performing kind of what you need to do to bring a deal home?
I'm sure all of our organizations have different lenses, and it's a great point. It's how can we internally apply, all these tech and tech-enabled solutions to help smooth out the deal making. I think the flip side is through that food chain, buyers really are always looking for that next batch of data. It's always been a data-centric, buy-side lens. Now with AI, they're asking for a lot more. So what does that mean? It actually helps Grant Thornton, because companies need to be, and I'd be interested in others' experience, more prepared up front before they're going to market. Unless there's an inbound bid of an attractive level where it's like, we got to hire, some advisors and do a market check and we're ready to go. Otherwise, it's a process to get ready to go to market on the financial side, on the business side, so that when you're in market, as we would call it, that process is as streamlined.
But one of my favorite is the Abraham Lincoln line when he was asked, you have 6 hours to cut down the tree, how are you going to spend your time? And he said the first 5 hours sharpening the axe and the next hour swinging the axe. So your point is you got to be prepared going into these conversations. Otherwise, you're going to fumble during the conversations.
Yeah, it's such an important part of the process. And yet, I think there's a lot in the way that we're seeing capital put to work against businesses that are stood up just to try to automate and speed up these, using AI. In the end, for the large part, again, there are some tech businesses that are software driven, but, I think in most of the advertising, media, marketing services type of businesses that we spend a lot of time in, it's still people businesses, right? So yeah, there's a moat and there's IP that you value and there's some strategic value to, but in the end, you're going to go try to integrate a group of people. So you could take a company to market, and as prepared as you are, I think ultimately someone's going to want to do this deal, right? It's usually a huge bet.
And the way I look at it is there's 5 principles when you're selling as opposed to when buying. One is the industry growing? Second, is your business growing? What's the CAGR, which is the growth rate? Third is, what's your moat? Fourth is, if I'm a buyer, private equity, small or large, is what value add can I actually create to accelerate the growth? And then fifth, what's the exit? And those are really the 5 principles, but it all comes down to the people being able to execute against that.